Hello Realtors, it's February 28, 2023. This is our first legal podcast for SCR. This is not legal advice, but it is talk about risk management. So today's episode is brought to you by the letter F. That includes Forewarn, Forms, and Fair Housing. So Forewarn is a new member service. And so we'll start out with introductions. Mike Chris is on the board. I'm Byron King, General Counsel. Austin, say hello.
Austin Smallwood, VP of Legal Affairs.
Hi, I'm Tiara Pitts, the Director of Fair Housing here at SCR.
And we manage the legal hotline, so if you need to reach us, you can contact us at 803-772-5206. You may talk to Chris Owens, our customer service operator, or Lindsay Pittman, who's also our ethics and arbitration administrator. So let's talk about some safety issues. So Forewarn, March 1st, that's tomorrow, since today's February 28th, but it's an app that'll be on your phone, your computer. You can pull up and do background checks on individuals, consumers, find out addresses, phone numbers, emails, past addresses, some information about their payments, their car payments, their mortgage, so you can get an idea of a consumer. So it's one part of your safety toolkit. It's not something that's going to be your only safety procedure, but part of your overall safety procedures. Your main source of safety is, as the police have said, is your mobile phone. You're calling 911. You want to make sure you know which jurisdiction you're in when you're out showing properties. You want to give landmark directions to where you are when you call 911. Some other ways you can deter criminals. You can meet them at the office. You can take pictures of the person or their vehicle or their tag. You can make introductions to office staff. You can let them know that you have a check back in time after the showing. And if something happens while you're on the showing, you want to make sure that your clothes and your shoes enable you to escape and evade once you call 911. You want to make sure you always have a clear path in the house. Always keep the consumer in front of you. Don't get cornered in a basement or a bedroom. Let them go in front of you as you show the property. And you want to make sure that your vehicle is able to escape. So you want to make sure that you're parked and you're not back. Somebody's not parked behind you to block you in a driveway. So some of the other legal issues that we've had on the hotline, like vacant land sales, that's the fake seller. Forewarn can help you get that deeded owner, find out, in addition to their tax mailing address, you can find out mailing addresses, phone numbers, emails. You can check with the HOA to find out some additional contact information. The other scam that's come up in the past has been the wire fraud. That's the fake lawyer that's trying to get wiring instructions. You can verify them for Forewarn as well. And you always want to use a trusted law firm where you recognize voices and emails and local phone numbers to get wire fraud directions. And you want the attorneys giving those wiring directions to buyers and sellers, not you. And then the rental scam that you can set up Google alerts for all your listings. That's where the fake landlord or property manager will scrape your listings into a rental scam. Forewarn can help determine that. If you have a client that says, hey, I'm looking at renting this house, you can check out the landlord or the property manager to make sure they're not fake landlords. A couple other issues that NER has brought up. AMC data collectors with a shortage of appraisers. These are unlicensed folks that come and measure houses, take pictures. You can use Forewarn with your seller if you're a listing agent to check out the AMC data collectors. NER relayed that there was one situation where one of the data collectors had a criminal background, so that's something to look out for. And NER alerts you that mailbox theft is on the rise. That's the old-fashioned steal mail out of your mailbox, trying to get checks or credit cards or personal identification information. So you can use United States Post Office boxes. You can use USPS. Well, image, you can sign up for image of all your envelopes that are being delivered so you can determine if something's been stolen from your mailbox. You'd get a daily email of your deliveries. And if something happens with safety, you want to contact law enforcement, let the associations know. You can post to social media. And for some of this vacant land sales, you can contact FBI and the Secret Service. And then, so that concludes the safety portion of this. And then, Derek, if you want to talk about some Forewarn, this new safety app that's coming out tomorrow, what are some fair housing implications for it?
Yes, thank you. So while this is a great tool for realtor safety, we also have to be aware of any potential ways that this can be used in a discriminatory manner and in violation of our Article 10, which, as you guys know as realtors, our Article 10 Code of Ethics prohibits discrimination based on certain protected class categories. And just as a reminder, those categories are race, color, religion, sex, handicap, familial status, national origin, sexual orientation, and gender identity. So these are the things that under no circumstances can a realtor discriminate against a potential buyer, seller, renter, any of those things in the course of our real estate business. And not only for us as agents, but also that goes to anyone who's involved in the home buying process. And that is our Article 10 Code of Ethics. It's also against state fair housing laws in South Carolina, as well as federal fair housing laws. So we're trying to protect you from not only a Code of Ethics violation, but a potential complaint with the Human Affairs Commission, who handles fair housing violations, and federally and state-wise as well. So some of the things, although the Forewarn app doesn't technically give you protected class information, you could use it, some people could use it in a way that, say a certain last name may reveal someone's national origin or things like that. We want to make sure that we are using this as a safety app and not something that's used to choose who to work with or to choose who your clients work with in a way that violates those fair housing rules. And some of the ways that we can really do this, and I talked this over with the legal team, and our advice would be to create office policies that really detail how to use the Forewarn app. Since it is first coming out and agents are going to be interested in using this, if you're a brokerage, encourages agents to use this, we would encourage you as brokerage owners to develop a set of policies that determine how this app will be used, because in that way you're making sure that you have written policies and that everyone knows how it's going to be used and to use it in the same way each time, because that really, when we're doing things unanimously and equal across the board, it helps with potential violations or calls to the hotline against our members. So we want to make sure that we're just doing everything equal, and that those policies, while you can have policies, and of course we encourage you to use this new safety tool, that you're using it in the same way with everyone. And for example, you wouldn't want to use Forewarn only sometimes, or maybe you have a feeling about this particular person, so you look them up, but that's not something that you normally do. What you would want to do is just do it the same with everyone, so it's consistent with our Code of Ethics, state and federal law. And another thing that could come up is potential criminal convictions, which Forewarn actually does give you that information. And for companies that have a property management aspect to your company, you are, of course, allowed to ask on any applications about prior criminal convictions, a yes or no type of thing. However, you want to always follow up with an explanation or an opportunity for that potential customer, client, or tenant to be able to explain that situation, so that you as a company can do a balancing act. Because sometimes we have, let's say a person is in their 40s now, and when they were 18 they had a small infraction or a misdemeanor type charge, would be different from, you look them up and they have a violent charge in the last 5 years or something. That may be a different balancing, a different analysis. So you can't treat every situation the same and just outright deny someone. If you just see a criminal conviction, you can't just outright deny them on that basis, because then you could get into some potential implications with fair housing.
Yeah, so say I'm a realtor, Tiara, and somebody calls me and I pull up my safety app, my Forewarn app, and I'm checking them out. Should I do that all the time with every consumer, or can I pick and choose?
You definitely want to do it all the time with every consumer, and this is Forewarn today, but just in any of our policies and anything that we do, such as if you require certain identification before you even take someone on a showing, like a pre-approval letter or a picture of their driver's license or something like that, that's totally fine, and we encourage you to do things that are in your best interest for safety, but we want you to do that with every single person, not just pick and choose, to do it with some people or others. So we really want to keep everything unanimous and equal across the board. And of course, if you guys have this is a new app, a new app that we're providing as a state service. So if you have any questions about fair housing implications or things come up, I would encourage you to reach out to me directly by the legal hotline, or you can email me at tpitts@screaltors.org, and we can talk these things over, because of course they're going to be situational and different things are going to come up that we're going to keep you guys aware of. But if anything fair housing related comes up, we encourage you to give the hotline a call to put us on notice, and so we can better equip and educate our members on the different things with this application.
Yeah, I'm excited about the Forewarn app. I think that'll be a good part of the overall safety program for realtors to manage their risk. Next, we got Austin Smallwood. Austin, you got some forums news and how forums interact with Forewarn, perhaps?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So talking about when you should use the Forewarn app, a great time would be when you're doing that agency disclosure brochure, disclosure of agency brokerage, disclosure of brokerage relationships, which is required at the point of first substantive contact. So as soon as you meet somebody, do it on the front end. Hey, I hear you're interested in selling your house, buying a house. Go ahead and do it at that time, and it's across the board, uniform. You do it that way every time. It's a checkbox that you have as far as your initial prospect entry form. So that would be my suggestion, or do it when you do the buyer agency, or when you're about to send buyer agency or listing agreement. But the key is just if you have a set time that you do it in every transaction, it's going to be a lot easier to remember it and make sure that you're doing it at all times. So going into a couple of other forms of changes that we have upcoming. So we do have forms changes that will be taking effect on March the 20th. We're going to go over them very briefly in today's podcast, but we're going to have a more thorough webinar on them on March the 8th at noon. That will be on Zoom. After 500 attendees on Zoom, it's going to be overflow to YouTube. It's going to be the exact same experience, so don't worry if you get put on YouTube. If you aren't able to attend the webinar, we are also going to be recording that, and that will be available on YouTube later on. So there are 5 forms that are changing. 3 are forms that are changing. 2 are brand new forms. So the first form that is changing, and the biggest of the 5 changes, is to the buyer agency agreement. So what we're doing is we're removing that option 2 that's currently in the agreement. Option 2 is the one that states, I'm going to try my best to get paid out of the transaction by a FSBO, but if I can't, buyer, you don't owe me anything. We're removing that option. That was being sold by many agents as the free option. Standard Practice 12.1 in your Code of Ethics says you can't advertise your services as free unless you are absolutely not getting paid by either side. So to ease with that, we're removing option 2. There will now just be option 1, which states your buyer is going to agree to pay you a certain amount of either a flat fee or a percentage. You're going to still make your best efforts to get that compensation out of the MLS or this FSBO seller. But if you cannot, the buyer is going to be responsible for paying that fee. If the fee that is offered in the MLS is higher than the fee that your buyer agreed to pay you, that will be your fee. But you must tell your buyer that that's going to be your fee, and your buyer has to consent to that under Article 6 of the Code of Ethics. So if you had agreed to a fee of 5x and it's 6x in the MLS, then that will be 6x will be your fee unless your buyer has an issue with it, and then you will amend your buyer's agreement in paragraph 17. If instead of 5x the MLS offers 4x, your compensation will still be 5x, but the buyer will have to pay one of those 5x's and the other 4 will be paid by the seller. So the floor is what you put in that agreement. So make sure your buyer's aware, hey, whatever we put in here, if I can't get paid, you're ultimately going to be the one who picks up the check. So don't put a number in there that you cannot pay. Make sure you talk with your lender about what you can actually pay as a buyer's commission. The next 2 forms that we're amending are Forms 370 and 375. Those are the buyer's occupy prior closing and the seller occupy after closing agreements. Those are supposed to be used for very short time periods. Hours or days, not weeks or months. We were hearing calls on the hotline, I'm sure Byron and Tiara can attest to this, that people were using these forms for 2-3 weeks, 2-3 months. That is not appropriate. These are really for, I'm coming in on Friday afternoon, the seller's already moved out, we're closing first thing Monday morning, can I go ahead and move in? But I would caution parties about this form, because once the buyer takes possession, they're responsible for the house. So the buyer takes possession in that example Friday morning, Saturday, the HVAC system goes kaput. The buyer is going to be responsible for fixing that HVAC system because they took possession. Also, in neither of those agreements is a landlord-tenant agreement created. So if something happens and you have to try to get this buyer or seller out of the property, it's a very complicated situation because you don't have the normal ejectment processes available to you because you do not have a tenant. You essentially have a permissive squatter, for lack of a better term. So if you have to use these forms, use it for a very short period of time, but alternatively, recommend seeing if there's a way that the parties can just stay at a hotel. That is probably the better of the options. And then there's two new forms that we're adding. The first is an addendum to discuss the Vacation Rental Act. There are disclosures that are required under that act, so we have now put all those in one form. Again, the Vacation Rental Act means that you must honor any vacation rentals or short-term bookings, so Airbnbs, VRBOs, that are on the property within 90 days of the deed being recorded. The seller has to tell you ahead of time as the buyer where these are, but the buyer cannot get out of those. So this form will kind of walk you through the process of, is there a vacation rental management company? If so, how do we contact them? If we've been provided a list, do we have all the pool tags, amenities, all that sort of stuff. And then lastly is the form that we get, was created through a lot of calls we get on the hotline. And you've probably had this question yourself of, well, does this convey with the property? Gets into fixtures. So what the Forms Committee did was they went through an exhaustive list of, hey, what's everything we've had to deal with, what's everything the hotlines had to deal with, and we actually listed out A through Y on this new addendum of the following items are going to convey with a house, unless otherwise noted. There is a paragraph in there, paragraph 2, that you can list which one of the items above you don't think should convey with the house. So if you have a seller who really cares about fancy bathroom mirrors that they have, they just need to put in paragraph 2 that they do not wish for the bathroom mirrors to convey. One recommendation is going to be for listing agents to give this to their sellers ahead of time before the property is listed and have the seller fill this out and put it on the MLS. That way buyers have an idea when they go look at a property of what items are going to convey and which are not. Again, this is just an addendum, so this is not a required form, but this should hopefully help solve a lot of those issues. And then lastly, before I turn it back over to Byron, there was one issue that we are hearing repeatedly about on the ethics front. We're getting a lot of questions, and I wanted to make this clear. Under license law and the Code of Ethics, you cannot market any property that you do not have a written active listing agreement for. So regardless of whether you have the listing agent's permission, the seller's permission, you should not be sharing anybody else's listing on Facebook or any other social media. It doesn't matter if the listing agent's your best friend. It doesn't matter if the seller's your best friend. It doesn't matter if they told you in writing. It doesn't matter if you give them credit. The entire process that's going to happen if Real Estate Commission wants to make a complaint about this is they're going to look at your social media post, and then they're going to come to your office and ask for the listing agreement on that subject property. If you cannot produce that listing agreement, that is in direct violation of license law. So make sure that you're aware of that. If you don't post anything on social media if your brokerage does not have the listing agreement. And by brokerage, I mean your broker in charge. If you are in the same franchise but you have different brokers in charge, you cannot share those listings. You must have a common broker in charge in order to share any listings. But I'll turn that back over to Byron. And as Tier mentioned, if you have any questions on anything today, give us a call on the hotline. Or if you have any questions on the form, email me at austin@screaltors.org.
And I just have another forms update. We will be providing several of our forms translated from English into Spanish, which it'll be used as companion document, not an actual document that you will sign. But for your Spanish-speaking buyers or sellers, they will have a full translation of several of our forms that are widely used, such as that buyer's agency, our sales contract, that agency brokerage disclosure of relationships, are just some of the forms that will be translated. And we'll have disclaimers that says not a contract, do not sign, just a companion piece document like other associations do with the same type of translation. So be on the lookout for that to come out. We're currently working on that. So that's something that we're really looking forward to as far as the DEI committee and bringing that out of forms. And we also have a fair housing conference on April 19th from 10 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. This will be live on Zoom, and we're going to really dig into educating members on fair housing and different cultural issues that relate to housing and making sure that we're sustaining and creating an inclusive culture here at SCR. So I hope that you guys can join that on April 19th. And we'll also, on April 5th, we're going to have a DEI book club meeting that's open to all. And we'll have the Color of Law author, Richard Rothstein, there live on Zoom, where you guys will get to talk and hear some of the things about that book. So we really hope that you can join us for those exciting updates that are soon to come.
Yeah, it's fantastic. We're really excited about March and April. So March 1st, the Forewarn app will launch. So if we're a team, say for example, we'd have training. I like Austin talking about always do it uniformly, maybe when you do the substantive contact with 110 or the buyer agency, because some of these horrific attacks we've seen have been kind of fake buyers where they lure the realtor into a showing, a loan, and then assault or armed robbery sometimes on these realtors around the country. So the Forewarn, you'd be able to pull up the individual, look up their, make sure their phone numbers match so it looks like they're legitimate. You can look for criminal background. You always want to do that uniformly. So this would be a great member service, a great part of your safety protocols. And if we were a team, I would say, hey, I'm going out to do a showing. It's 11 o'clock. If I don't check back in by 1 p.m., here's the address I'm going to be at. Please call 911 and have the police come out there because there's a problem if I haven't checked back in on that. Also in March, we've got March 16th, the Women's Conference. So females and males are invited to that. So that winding up, we're talking about, we've got the Forewarn launching on March 1st. That'll be another part of your safety protocols. You got the forms launching in March. You got the Fair Housing Conference coming up in April. And so that kind of concludes our legal podcast. If you have any questions, you can contact us at 803-772-5206. I think y'all gave your emails. Mine's Byron at screaltors.org. Please contact us. Give us feedback on Forewarn. Forewarn will have a customer service number if you have problems. You have Forewarn now and you're paying for it. That will roll into the member service. So it'll be part of your South Carolina Association of Realtors member services. So that'll be exciting on March 1st. And that concludes our podcast for today. And we'll see you in the next episode.